Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound Podcast quick picks video for UFC Fight Night. Taira taking on Park in the main event over at the Apex. And as always, if you've had a busy week with a busy schedule, this video is for you. Full card breakdown in 15 minutes or less, rapid fire style with a confident level traffic light system at the bottom. And as always, if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound Podcast, hit that like and subscribe button as we kick things off in the early prelim opener of Ketlin Souza taking on Piera Rodriguez, and I like Piera Rodriguez in this matchup here. I think Souza can be a little bit low volume. I think that she struggled with the takedowns of her opponents in the past. We saw that in the Angela Hill fight. And Piera Rodriguez has got dynamite in the hands. She throws in combinations. She hits pretty hard. And also she's been showing that she can mix in takedowns in previous fights. I like that here. I think that she's going to be able to get takedowns whenever she wants. I think on the feet she can definitely mix things up and throw a lot more volume, providing she doesn't headbutt her opponent. I like her here. Medium level confidence. Piera Rodriguez to get it done, mixing in the grappling and the striking. And next up, we have, on short notice, Rafael Estevam taking on Felipe Bunes. Bunes, very good off of his back, great scrambles, good jiu-jitsu, has a very nice armbar that he's shown off in the Jose Johnson fight previously. And we know with Estevam that he's a fantastic wrestler, undefeated. He mixes in a lot of takedowns. He's got very good top control. Not necessarily a submission guy, really likes to get into half guard and beat you up with ground and pound. I don't want to say lay and pray because it makes him sound like a bad fighter, but he will, basically get on top and control you for large portions of rounds here. And the reason that I don't have him as a confident pick is because he's taken this fight on short notice. And we've seen in Rafael Estevam's previous fights that he will slow down because of that heavy wrestling pace. And I worry about the short notice here. I worry that, come round, sort of the late second round, third round, that he might start to tire because of the wrestling. I think he's going to be able to get his wrestling going early against a guy like Bunes. Bunes will happily sit on his back, play jiu-jitsu. I don't think he'll be able to sweep Estevam. I'm going to slightly lean here to Estevam to get it done. However, the short notice does bother me a little bit. If this fight was scheduled to be on the card originally and both of these guys were scheduled to fight, Rafael would be a green pick. I feel very, very good about him. But just that short notice with the gas tank issues in the past, wrestling heavy, has me a little bit worried. But I am going to take Rafael Estevam to get it done in a slight lean. And next up, we have Andre Puliev taking on Nick Klein. Give me Nick Klein, man, the blue-collar man out of America. This guy's going to be gritty. We've seen with Puliev in his previous fight against Christian Leroy Duncan that he didn't even really look interested. He didn't really look like he wanted to be in there. Tall, rangy Russian kickboxer that basically likes to sit in the clinch. If you sit in the clinch against Nick Klein, he's going to dig for underhooks. He's going to push you up against a fence, shoot in for double legs, mix in his wrestling, and he's going to make this fight gritty. And I like that about Nick Klein. I do think that he is fairly talented. He's got that sort of blue-collar spirit in him. You can see that in the way that he fights. Medium level confidence here as the underdog to get it done here in Klein. I can't trust Puliev to get it done because what is his main skill set other than just looking disinterested in fights? Nick Klein gets it done with the wrestling here. I wouldn't even be surprised if he pulls off a late submission here just from wearing on Puliev and just breaking his spirit with the wrestling. And next up, we have Rodolfo Vieira taking on Tresean Gore. And it's pretty difficult to really decipher this fight, in my opinion. With Vieira, obviously we know, fantastic jiu-jitsu practitioner, world level. They don't call him the black belt hunter they call him the black belt hunter for a reason. And Tresean Gore, he's looked better in previous fights. He does have a nice guillotine. He is fairly athletic. His striking looked impressive in his last fight. He took a lot of big shots from his Brazilian opponent. However, Rodolfo Vieira isn't the type of Brazilian opponent that he's got to worry about the striking with here for Gore. I do think that Vieira slows down in fights due to his over-muscular build. If he, can't get fights to the ground to use that high-level jiu-jitsu, he will struggle here. However, I am going to slightly lean to him. I don't necessarily trust Tresean Gore's fight IQ and his experience. I do think that somehow Vieira is going to get this fight to the ground and catch him on the ground. Maybe an arm triangle, maybe some sort of mount and arm triangle is what I see here. I don't trust Gore just because he has jumped guillotine in the past, and I just don't necessarily think he's that good of a fighter to exploit the lack of striking and cardio here of Rodolfo Vieira. Only a slight lean, though, as I do think the black belt hunter will get it done with the ground game. Next up, we have Rinya Nakamura taking on Nathan Fletcher. Nathan Fletcher, the training partner of Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Great jiu-jitsu. When he lets his hands go, he has power in the hands. He can land. We saw that against Loughran in his previous fight where he got screwed by the judges. And we know that with Rinya Nakamura, he is a fantastic wrestler, world level, Olympic level wrestler. He didn't get to perform in the 2020 Olympic Games with the wrestling. However, In his previous fight, he had an absolute stinker. He just decided not to use his fantastic wrestling. We don't know what that was about. So if he comes in here and he wrestles, he'll look like he'll look like a huge favorite. It's exactly what he is. However, if he comes in here and just strikes with Nathan Fletcher, that's why the confident level is what it is. It's a medium level confidence here on Rinya Nakamura. If he mixes in the wrestling, he would be a green pick because of his last performance. I'm not necessarily as confident here, and that's why I'm going with the medium level confident pick here of Rinya Nakamura to mix in the wrestling. And I think Nathan Fletcher is going to struggle to sweep a high-level wrestler like Nakamura. Fletcher is good. He can scramble. He's good at taking the back. He's good at jiu-jitsu, but we see time and time again with these high-level wrestlers, once they get you down, they hold you down. And I do think that Nakamura will probably use his wrestling here and get back in the win column. And next up, we have Danny Silva taking on Kevin Voorhaas. And I'm going with Voorhaas here. A green pick, confidence here. I think the UFC knows what they're doing. Both guys like to box. Both guys like to strike on the feet. And I do think that Danny Silva is a good matchup here for Kevin Vallejos, Kevin Vallejos, he's got fantastic boxing, throws in combination. Isn't necessarily a guy to fight behind the jab. He will mix in the low kicks and grappling. However, when it comes to his counter-striking ability, it is second to none. We've seen now 15-1 his only loss against a guy like Gene Silver on Contender Series. He looks like something that could be special inside the UFC. And Danny Silva, trained by Cub Swanson, the guy is a decent level fighter, but I just think here that the power difference from Kevin is going to be enough. I do think Silva is a little bit more of a volume puncher. I don't think he can really mix in any wrestling here against Kevin Vallejos. So give me Kevin Vallejos to get it done on the feet with the power, make it 16-1 and rise up in the UFC. And next up, we have Neil Magny taking on Zaleski dos Santos. Give me Zaleski dos Santos here. I think he's a little bit more dangerous than Magny. We've seen with Magny previously now, in most of his fights, he's going to fight behind the jab, not necessarily has a lot of pop in his hands, and he will try and clinch you up against the fence. Very tall for the division, a little bit known as a gatekeeper in this division. But to me, dos Santos is a lot more dangerous. The capoeira style, he can hit you from odd angles. He'll mix in some of the wrestling as well. And I just think all of the danger and all of the damage is going to come from dos Santos here. Medium level confidence pick, as both guys are 37 and 38 respectively, but I do think that the damage and the striking here is going to be much more dangerous on the side of dos Santos. Expect him to walk down Neil Magny here and find some sort of overhand or some sort of big shot here. I think he might get the knockout late in this one. And next up, we have Carla Rosa taking on Norma Cornell, and I'm going to ever so slightly lean here to Carla Rosa. I don't necessarily trust either of these two women. I do think that Carla Rosa here is going to have a little bit more fundamental striking, and I think the way that she taps at the low kick is going to be a big factor here against Cornell. Cornell showed in her last fight that she can mix in grappling. I like the fact that she's showing improvements, but she is 35 years old. Women's MMA can be a little bit tricky at times to predict, and I do think that Carla Rosa has obviously fought the higher level of competition inside the UFC, so slight lean to her here to get it done with the boxing volume, tapping at the low kick and keeping this fight upright. And next up, we have Elvis Brenner taking on Esteban Ribovics. And I'm going to go with Ribovics here. I think that he's going to have a little bit more volume on the feet. I think that he's got a fantastic striking ability. He's very tough, very durable. And he showed in his last fight that he's got a great chin. He took some of the best licks that Nasrat Hakparas was able to throw at him. Elvis Brenner is known as the comeback kid. He always has third round, kind of explosions where even if he's getting beaten up in the first 2 rounds, he kind of comes back and shows a lot of toughness. Shooter box fighter, very aggressive, good jiu-jitsu. Power in the hands, but I do think that Ribovic is a little bit more technical, and I do think that the volume here is going to put a little bit too much on Brenner's plate. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 29-28 Ribovics, and Brenner kind of won the third round, and Esteban had to kind of struggle through the third round to win on the judges' scorecards. But I think that Esteban Ribovics here, slight lean or sort of medium level confidence here, gets it done on the judges' scorecards. And next up, we have the co-main event. We have Mateusz Rebecki taking on Chris Duncan. I like Rebecki here. I think that he's shown that he's very, very tough. He's very durable, especially in that last fight against Mutabek Orabai. He's known for being a little bit of a grappler and a top-heavy wrestler who can find the submissions, especially early. Chris Duncan's looked good since joining American Top Team with back-to-back guillotine wins, but I do think there's a little bit of a speed discrepancy here. Chris Duncan can be a little bit plodding in the stand-up. I do think that Ribovic is going to mix in takedowns, but if he wants to stand and strike, I do think that he has a little bit more power and a little bit more technique on the feet and a little bit more hand speed as well. So I'm going to lean here to Ribovics to get it done against Chris Duncan. I think he might find the chin as well, as we've seen in the past that Duncan's chin hasn't always been all there. However, I do think that this ascendancy since joining American Top Team has been impressive, but I think this is a step too far. Give me Mateusz Rąbecki here to get it done, medium level confidence. And next up, we have Tatsuro Taira in the main event, taking on Park Hyung-sung. And obviously that was meant to be Albazi, unfortunately having to pull out. But give me Taira here. Full camp for this guy. This kid's impressive. Great back takes, great jiu-jitsu. I think he has a lot of power in the hands. Very underrated power, big for the division. And I think that Park is a good fighter. I think this is just a big step up in competition, a little bit too much too soon. I do think that Park has good grappling and fundamental boxing. We saw in his last fight against Carlos Hernandez that he did drop him and take his back and choke him out. I just think that wherever this fight goes, Taira is going to be able to mix in the grappling. If it stays on the feet, if he wants to stand and strike, I think he can. And I do think as well that he's got 5-round experience now. Park on short notice with 5 rounds could be a problem. Give me Tatsuro Taira here. Confident level pick to get it done, mixing in the grappling and the striking. And I obviously have to let you guys know what's coming on the channel or what's already here. We have the dog of the week, full highlight reel tape for my favorite betting underdog on the entire UFC Fight Night Taira versus Park card. Check that one out. And we have the full card breakdown for the PFL for World Tournament Finals. That's a great event. Carlos and I do a detailed breakdown of every fight on that card, along with the full card breakdown for the UFC Fight Night Park, taking on Taira in the main event. And as always, if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, 15 minutes or less, full card breakdown, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.